Today is Brunch with Bernie. Senator Bernie Sanders is with us, and he will be taking your calls throughout the hour, 866-987-THOM and 866-745-2667. We're doing Brunch with Bernie a day early. Yes, we are live on the air right now. And so, Bernie, welcome.
Good to be with you, Tom.
Great to have you, as always. It's the end of the year. Well, arguably next week is the end of the year, but we're awful close to it. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the high points and low points and even right now points. What's going on?
Well, it's been a really strange and difficult year for the American people. Economically, as every listener knows, our country continues to be battered. Unemployment is, we get used to it, Tom, because we keep talking about these numbers, but real unemployment, counting those who have given up looking for work, people who are working part-time, it's over 15%. That's just an extraordinary number. You got just an incredible number of young people, high school graduates, college graduates, who are, excited about starting their careers, getting out, making some money, not able to do that, staying home with their parents, and that's a terrible way to begin your career. You got old people who are seeing some serious poverty problems, constant attacks against Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the entire safety net that exists in this country. And I think actually one of the promising and exciting aspects of the last year has been the role that the Occupy Wall Street movement has played, and I think educating the American people about the very, very important issue of growing income and wealth disparity in this country. This is an issue I've been talking about for a very long time. But I got to say, I think because of the Occupy Wall Street effort, the media was forced to pay more attention just in the last 6 months than I think in the last 10 years. And that is whether or not a nation can survive when so few have so much and so many have so little. When you got 400 people, wealthiest people in this country, owning more wealth than the bottom half of America. Forget the morality of that. Economically, is that sustainable? And I think more and more people are saying, no, it's not. Something wrong. If people down below don't have any money to buy products, they're not going to create jobs, and the economy is going to continue to remain in very, very bad shape. You have, for the middle class, the continued decline. Median family income is down $3,000 compared to where it was 10 years ago. As we speak, you're looking at millions and millions of workers working longer hours for lower wages. Probably the saddest part of that whole thing is seeing older workers, people 50, 55, 60, who have lost their jobs, then getting another job that pays them 25, 50% less than the job that they had for years. Not a great way to end up your working career. And then you got others who it has dawned on them they may never find another job in their life. I imagine being 55, preparing to work till you're 65, thinking you're going to do that, put away some nest egg for your retirement, and then suddenly at the age of 55, it's all over. So that's just, that's what's going on in the economy. I think environmentally what we're seeing is just a huge silence with regard to global warming. What the scientists tell us is that they underestimated the dangers of global warming in terms of drought, in terms of flood, in terms of extreme weather disturbances. Hardly a peep in Congress, an issue we're going to be more active on. But let me just talk about some of my thoughts about the role that I intend to play in the next year.
Great.
Money in politics is maybe at the heart of everything. So long as you have the Koch brothers and these big money guys funding candidates all over the country, you're not going to have a Congress standing up for working families or lower-income people or the middle class. So it is not going to be easy. Let me be very clear about this. But we have to overturn this disastrous Supreme Court 5-4 Citizens United decision and get corporate money out of politics. We need real campaign finance reform so ordinary people representing the middle class can have the opportunity to run for office and not get outspent 100-1 by big money interests. So that's an enormously important issue. We have introduced, along with Ted Deutsch in the House, constitutional amendment to undo the damage done by Citizens United. People can sign our petition on sanders.senate.gov. We have over 105,000 signatures right now. That's a huge issue. Economically, we're going to get back to the issue of Wall Street. I think Occupy Wall Street did a very good job in focusing on the power of Wall Street, on the greed of Wall Street, on the illegal behavior of Wall Street. We can never, ever, ever forget that we are in the midst of this horrendous recession because of the greed and recklessness and illegal behavior on Wall Street. How do you deal with that? It ain't easy. Dodd-Frank took some minor steps forward. We have got to go a lot further than that. I think clearly one of the top issues is to address the fact that you have 6 large financial institutions, the largest in this country, who have assets equivalent to 65% of the GDP of America, over $9 trillion. Are we comfortable as a nation with 6 corporations, 6 financial institutions, having assets equivalent to 2/3 of the GDP of America? I'm not. I'm not from a too big to fail aspect. I think it's quite likely that at some point these guys will go down again and we'll have to bail them out. But in addition to that, the kind of economic power they have when they are writing half of the credit cards, 2/3 of the credit cards in this country and half of the mortgages, that's just too much power. So we're going to be continuing our effort to break these large financial institutions up. In terms of the social fabric of this country, people have become accustomed to understanding that Social Security is there. Social Security has been an enormous success story. Before Social Security, 50% of seniors lived in poverty. Today, that number, while too high, is 10%. And yet, despite the fact that Social Security hasn't contributed a nickel to the deficit and that it can pay off every benefit for the next 25 years because it has a $2.5 trillion surplus, there are savage attacks every single day trying to undermine Social Security in one way or another. And as the chairman of the Defending Social Security Caucus, we have managed, amidst great struggle, I should tell you, to keep the wolves at bay and not to start dismembering Social Security. But that's an ongoing fight. Same thing with Medicare. People want to raise the retirement age to 67. Medicaid, 50 million people in this country have no health insurance. They want to make savage cuts in Medicaid. So we got to defend the social safety net at a time when we're in a great recession, at a time when the middle class is declining. You don't take away the support system that the elderly, the children, the sick and the poor are surviving on. Obviously, in the coming year, we've got to focus on the major economic issue, and that is job creation. How do we create the millions and millions of jobs that we need? And while, in my view, the Democrats have not been anywhere near as strong as they should be, it is very clear that the function of the Republican Party in Congress is simply to represent the wealthiest people in this country and the most powerful. Yeah. So we got to figure out ways, and there are clear ways to do it, rebuilding our infrastructure, transforming our energy system, but we've got to create millions of jobs in the very near future.
Absolutely. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our national town hall meeting a day early. Brunch with Bernie. He'll be back right after this break, about 4 minutes from now. Stick around.
But the fire is so delightful.
Well, happy holidays. It's I believe, the 3rd day of Hanukkah now, and Christmas is coming up this weekend. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann program. Senator Bernie Sanders, our national town hall meeting, a day early. Today is Thursday, and he'll be taking your calls. You're still with us, Bernie?
I'm right here.
Okay, taking your calls right now. Chuck in Knoxville, Tennessee, listening on Sirius XM. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Senator Sanders. I want to thank you both for the job you do. It's a wonderful thing to have in a time like this. I wanted to ask Senator Sanders about wind turbines along interstates. I've been thinking about this for a while. It seems to me that if we could start an initiative to bring wind turbines to interstates, that could represent a large closing of the environmental loop of energy use.
Well, Chuck, that's an interesting idea, and I think we should be prepared to invest very significantly in wind, which is a very, very fast-growing technology. So I'm a big proponent of wind. Obviously, you have to place wind where there is wind. And there is right now a major effort to build more wind all over this country. People should know, and I think they don't, how fast wind energy has been growing, because Chuck is right. We want to continue to do this. In Texas right now, they have 10,000 megawatts of wind energy. 10,000. That's the equivalent of 10 nuclear power plants in Texas. In Iowa, 20% of their electricity is generated by wind. What worries me in Washington right now is just recently, in terms of the recent negotiations, we have not extended a number of tax credits for renewable energy, wind and solar, which will have a very negative impact on the industry. But to answer Chuck's question, I think we need to be very vigorous in investing in wind. In some parts of the country, wind at 4 or 5 cents a kilowatt is now as cheap as any other form of electricity. The technology is going to bring it down, and I'm a very, very strong proponent of that.
Mark in San Francisco, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hello, guys. Senator Sanders, I want to ask you, I've heard different things with regard to the Senate filibuster. I've heard that it can only be changed at the end or at the beginning of a new Congress. I've also heard that it could be changed at any time. I've also heard that they need 60 votes in order to change it. I want you to clarify, when can that be modified, or I want it to be eliminated, but what exactly happens with that?
Well, Mark, in a sense, given the nature of a very confusing institution with all kinds of rules, everything you said is true. The filibuster rule, one often looks at the beginning of the session, and there is an argument to be made at the beginning of the session that because the Senate is an ongoing body, that, 2/3 of the members are still there, that at that point you could do away with the filibuster. And there's some people who believe that. On the other hand, the truth is that Congress can do anything it wants at any time. It could do it tomorrow.
With a majority vote, right?
Right. Well, not quite with a majority vote, because the Republicans in this instance will demand 60 votes.
Uh-huh.
So that's why it becomes everything you said, Mark, is true. But here is the bottom line of that discussion. I think there's a lot of concern all over this country about why does it take 60 votes to get anything done. And the reason for that right now is the Republicans are abusing the filibuster process in an unprecedented way. After Obama was elected, the number of 60 votes that were required to pass legislation just went up off the charts compared to past history. So the answer is yes, we do need filibuster reform. There are a number of ideas out there. One of them is that if people want to filibuster, they're going to have to stay on the floor, or at least several of them will have to stay on the floor. You can't just say I want 60 votes and then disappear, but you're going to have to put some skin into that game, plus some other factors. But Republicans have abused what has historically been used very rarely, the 60-vote number, and clearly we have to change that.
Jerry in Lake Pleasant, Massachusetts. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, my question is about the post office. I'm from a small village in Massachusetts where we all get our mail at the post office, and they've been talking about closing it, and we've been fighting that. And now all of a sudden we find out they've delayed the decision until May, and we don't quite understand what's going on. I was wondering if you could...
Well, Jerry, I'm happy to tell you, because I'm the guy who helped lead the effort to delay the decision to May, to give us, here's what you got. The post office now obviously has financial problems for a number of reasons. First-class mail has gone way down because people are now using the Internet. We're in the middle of a recession. That's impacted the post office. But the most important financial problems for the post office are that some years ago the Congress determined that the post office was going to have to come up with $5.5 billion every year for future health retiree benefits, which is an extraordinarily onerous and unprecedented burden. No other agency of federal government No other company in the private sector comes anywhere near having to come up with that kind of money in that period of time. So, Jerry, what we did is I sent a letter out, and we have 22 signatures on that letter in the Senate, saying to the post office, delay these cuts. Rural post offices, these small post offices in rural America, as Jerry just indicated, are extremely important to the identity of communities. It's not just mail service. It goes beyond that. That's true in my state, where they have in mind to cut down, to eliminate 15 post offices. It's true all over America. So, Jerry, we are trying to fight back. We're making some progress. I'm glad that we have given Congress at least 5 months in order to pass comprehensive postal reform, which I hope will protect those rural post offices.
That's great. That's great news. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Your calls coming up after the break here at the bottom of the hour for Senator Sanders.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
And check out Bernie's website, sanders.senate.gov. You can sign his petition, his constitutional amendment to roll back Citizens United. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour, a day early today here. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls. And in our national town hall meeting, Robert in Jacksonville, Florida. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. Good wishes for the holidays. I had a question. I was wondering what your viewpoint was on the American Monetary Act. Apparently would nationalize the Federal Reserve. Just wanted to know what your viewpoints are on it, and do you think it would ever get on the table again?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not familiar with that particular act, but I will tell you that we're working very, very hard on Fed reform. The Fed is perhaps the most important and least known, least understood federal agency that we have. It has incredible power. During the Wall Street collapse, it lent out $16 trillion to every major financial institution in this country and central banks all over the world, wealthy individuals in this country. And we managed to get a provision in the Dodd-Frank bill which did a GAO audit of all of that, and we learned about it. So there's no question to my mind that we need very fundamental reform of the Fed in terms of its structure, who sits on the Fed, including regional Feds, and including what its function is. We saw how aggressive, incredibly aggressive, the Fed could be when it came to protecting the large financial institutions 3 years ago. We need to see an equally aggressive Fed protecting the middle class of this country and being aggressive in creating the millions and millions of jobs that we need in protecting consumers against very high credit card interest rates, against illegal foreclosure processes with banks. So the issue is absolutely we need real Fed reform. We need to democratize it, and we need to make it accountable to the middle class and working families of this country. I put together a task force of some 20 progressive economists who are helping me do that, and in the coming weeks we'll have more to say about that.
Great. Betsy in Minneapolis, Minnesota, you are on the air with Senator Bernie Sanders. Betsy? No, Betsy. Jackie in Port Townsend. You got to listen to your phone, not your radio. Jackie in Port Townsend, Washington. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi. Happy holidays, and I love you both dearly. I read a post yesterday by Steve Giustino, moved to a man National Action Coordinator for Occupy the Courts, and he claimed that the wording in your amendment really creates a loophole because you state for-profit corporations. And he points out that Citizens United was a non-profit corporation I know in your section 1 of your article, it says, the rights protected by the Constitution of the United States are the rights of natural persons and do not extend to for-profit corporations, limited liability companies, or other private entities established for business purposes or to promote business interests under the laws of any state, the United States or foreign state. Could you explain that to me, please?
Well, we went around the block a lot in trying to figure out the best way to go forward. And there is no simple way. I think the main point that we wanted to make at this moment is that it is an outrage and a real attack on American democracy when you have corporations able to go into their own treasuries and spend unlimited sums of money without disclosure on campaigns. This is a real undermining of American democracy. I understand what you're saying about nonprofits. We think that our language, in fact, does protect nonprofits, and it was the best language that we could find at this point.
Phyllis in Los Angeles, you're listening to, or you're on the air, excuse me, with Senator Bernie Sanders.
Hello?
Phyllis, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you so much. Senator Sanders, I'm asking you because, like Diogenes, I'm looking for an honest man to give an honest answer. I'm calling about the Social Security Fairness Act. This is an act that was supposed to overturn the windfall elimination provision and government pension offset provisions of Social Security that was enacted during the Reagan era. As you know, the windfall elimination provision and government pension offset allows for reduction of Social Security benefits that were earned and paid for by people who may have worked in the public sector for a term and got a small pension, and then when we go to retire, Social Security tells us, oh, you have a public pension, so we're reducing your Social Security. In my case, that my public pension, for example, is $350 a month, but Social Security is reducing me by $300 a month. My family alone has lost $120,000 in benefits, plus a family home, as a result of the failure to enact the Social Security Fairness Act. And I want to know why this has been allowed to continue. Even this year, the House passed the Social Security Fairness Act, but no one in the Senate would put forward a companion bill. For the past 4 years, Social Security Fairness passes both houses, goes to committee, and dies there. And I want to know why.
Well, Phyllis, I apologize. I cannot give you the reasoning why. All that I can tell you right now in terms of Social Security is that there is a tremendous effort on the part of a whole lot of people in the Congress not to strengthen Social Security, not to make Social Security fair, not to do away with loopholes or problems that you and others are being impacted on, but in fact to go very strongly in the other direction, to cut Social Security benefits or in fact to privatize it. So the direction is going in the wrong way, but I will in fact take a look and find out more about the issue that you raised.
I'd be wary about anything that says fairness that was passed by the Republican House.
Yeah, well,
Social Security fairness.
Well, sometimes things are passed with full understanding they're not going to go anyplace.
Yeah, well, that's true, too. Michael in Seattle, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders, I have two questions that are interrelated. The first is, can you tell me why in the world we have 36,000 troops still stationed in Japan, why we have 55,000 troops still stationed in Germany, including 80,000 troops in Western Europe? Apparently, they have the mission of protecting Western Europe now from Eastern European shoppers. And the second half of this question that's interrelated, at the same time we have 22% of our kids living in poverty. That's a national disgrace compared to 15% in Canada, 12% Germany, 8% France, 3.5% for Finland, and 2.6% in Sweden. And finally, the president promised to raise the minimum wage. Nothing's been done on that front. I think the State of the Union would be a wonderful time to announce that we are going to increase the minimum wage to at least nationally $9 an hour.
Well, Michael, you've given me a mouthful here. Let me start off with the overseas bases that we have. I think your point is well taken.
We have 1 minute, Bernie.
I do not know why we have 55,000 troops in Germany. In many ways, Germany is now a wealthier country than we are. If we are serious about deficit reduction, one way you have to move is by cutting military spending. One of the reasons I voted against the defense authorization bill, one of the reasons, is we continue to spend more money than the rest of the world combined on defense, and I think taking a hard look at overseas bases is one way that we can cut spending. In terms of childhood poverty, you've raised an issue that I've talked about a whole lot. It is enormously important, and it is a national disgrace that this great country has by far the highest rate of childhood poverty. You mentioned some of the countries in Scandinavia. When kids grow up in poverty, the likelihood is that they are, in most cases, many cases, not going to do well in school. They're going to drop out. We have clearly got to address this problem of having almost 1/4 of our kids living in poverty at a time when we also have the most unequal distribution of wealth and income.
Very well said. Senator Bernie Sanders with us. It's our Brunch with Bernie, our national town hall meeting. Bernie will be back after this break in about 4.5 minutes, taking more of your calls here on the Thom Hartmann program. Check out his website, sanders.senate.gov. You can sign his petition to roll back Citizens United, his constitutional amendment to roll back Citizens United over there, and also get on his newsletter.
Solution of old and young to help to win a world struggle in order that we may preserve all that we hold dear.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go.
Welcome back to the place where despair is not an option. Happy holidays, my friends. Today, our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders taking your calls. Bernie, you're still here with us?
I am right here.
All righty. Laura in Dearborn, Michigan, listening to WHYT. Laura, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi. I'm real honored to be talking to you. I have a nagging question about 2 years ago, the U.S. offered big money relief to Haiti because of their earthquake, and come to find out about a year later that Tom Coburn had held it up with his signature, saying he didn't like the way the money was going to be dispersed. Do you know anything about that, or
somewhere in the back of my mind, I do recall some discussion about that a while back. I think, I will not swear to you, Laura, I think that issue may have been resolved, but I will not, I can't guarantee that, but I do recall that discussion. It was a while back, but I certainly hope that that money, as intended, did get to Haiti, a country which desperately needed it.
Yeah, and still does. Brooke in Phoenix, Arizona, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good morning, Senator. You are a real inspiration to so many of us. I just want to thank you for that. And my question is, what could be done to get the unemployment metric that the Department of Labor uses modified to include the long-term unemployed instead of just categorizing them as not interested in work? Because the current metric is dishonest, and I think it's detrimental to the issue of trust in a government that would use obviously flawed metric to make itself look good.
Well, Brooke, thanks for asking that question. And what he is talking about is, when you pick up the papers and they say, well, unemployment is 8.6%, that is really not true. And there are government statistics itself which tell us that. If you include people who have given up looking for work, say you're in a very high unemployment area, and you're not actively searching for work, you're not included in the unemployment statistics. If you're working part-time, or when you want to work full-time, you're not included in those statistics. So you're absolutely right. And I think occasionally the media, by the way, I think increasingly is using other numbers. For example, you'll see in the papers unemployment being over 15% when you include those. But we do need to change those metrics. The other area where it is equally important, for example, is determining what poverty is in America. And the metrics we're using there are also totally antiquated and inadequate. So above and beyond social policy about how you deal with unemployment, how you deal with poverty, the truth is the American people should know the reality, and I think in neither case is that currently the situation.
Carol in Portland, Oregon, you're on the air with Senator Sanders. Sounds like Carol's picking up her phone very quickly.
No, I'm here.
Yeah, okay. Carol, you're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you. I don't really have a question, but here's the situation. My husband has been is an attorney in the Portland area, and the only law that we deal with is Social Security disability law. A year ago, last October, the funds to pay for the attorney fees began to decrease. They have decreased to the point over this past year that we are now close to bankruptcy.
Wow.
We've had 10 employees. We've had 3 attorneys. A couple months ago, we had to lay off 4 employees and 2 attorneys. And as of January 13th, this coming January.
So, Carol, I'm sorry, but we only have about a minute and a half left in the show. Is there a quick question in there for Bernie?
I think I got it.
Okay, you got it. Go for it, Bernie.
And I think the answer, Carol, is this is one of many approaches the right wing is using to undermine Social Security. If people do not have legal representation, they're not going to be able to stand up for their rights, and people will not get the benefits to which they are entitled. Furthermore, you're also seeing significant attacks, and funding cuts to the administration of Social Security. One of the problems that we have here in my office, and I'm sure it's true in every state in the country, is people call and they say, I'm appealing, and it takes forever to get a decision. And that is because, in many ways, Social Security is understaffed. They don't have the people to review the requests that are coming in for action. So you are going to see, in a wide variety of ways, whether it's limiting people's ability to defend themselves and get justice in Social Security, or the time it takes for people to adjudicate claims, that is the result of cuts in the administration, if you like, of Social Security, something we've got to vigorously oppose.
Yeah. Bernie, is that because the spending bills originate in the Republican-controlled House, and they're just cutting?
Well, these are the demands of the Republicans, and they negotiate. And sometimes these guys get what they want.
Okay. The final minute here. Thoughts for the new year?
I think everybody knows that these are tough times for the country economically. These are tough times for the country politically. But I think there are some bright spots on the horizon. I think, and the evidence I think is pretty clear in terms of the elections that we saw in Wisconsin, where 2 Republican state senators were defeated. That's not an easy thing to do. Or more importantly, the results we saw in November in Ohio, where the working people of that state won a huge landslide victory, not only against unfair laws that would limit the ability of public employees to negotiate their contracts, but more importantly, they were taking on big money. And they were saying it's time for the working class of this country and our state to get some justice. So I think there is a trend going on in America where the 99% is saying to the 1%, enough is enough. And I think that bodes very positively for the coming year.
I absolutely agreed, and so glad that you're there and you're part of it, Bernie. Thanks again for a great year.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much for being with us. Senator Bernie Sanders, again, his website, sanders.senate.gov, where there is a spectacular constitutional amendment.